Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Wacom webinar on this wonderful Friday afternoon. Thank you for joining us here. Today we have Robert Hranitzky on board, who's going to talk about his experiences on working from home and share some tips and tricks with us. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting afternoon. Before we jump into the actual webinar, here are a few very easy to follow housekeeping rules that will allow us to make this more enjoyable for everyone. So the webinar is going to be roughly about an hour. We will have 10 minutes for Q&A at the end of the webinar. For your questions during the webinar, please use the Q&A function of Zoom. You will find it in your taskbar. So no chat and no raising hands, because the Q&A function actually allows us to either answer questions on the fly or really manage them towards the end of the webinar. And it offers a better overview for everybody on board. Robert will try to answer some of the questions that pop up during the actual webinar by himself on the fly. And for the rest of the questions, we have the Q&A session at the end. Should we, however, not be able to answer all the questions within the webinar, do check your email a couple of days after the webinar, because we definitely will answer them there. After the webinar, as I mentioned, in this email, you also have all further information and a summary of the webinar, and also a link to the video where you can re-watch the content of this webinar. So, who are we? I assume that some people of you know Wacom already. For the others, Wacom has been around for almost 40 years, and we are a pioneer of digital pen input technology. It's a lofty word, but basically everything that needs to be drawn or scribbled on a computer can be done with Wacom technology, and we've been doing that for quite a while. So don't draw or write with a mouse or a trackpad, use a digital pen, and preferably a Wacom. Our host today is Robert Hranitzky. He's a freelance designer and director based in Munich. He's got a strong focus on motion graphics design and animation, and has been working for a wide range of projects. He knows his trade, he's very skilled, and he's very experienced when it comes to working from home. So without much ado, I'm going to hand over to the expert, and I wish you all a very fun and enjoying and entertaining webinar, and we see each other and hear each other later on. Robert, to you. Hang on, I've got to unmute you. 1 second. Yes, there you go.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me loud and clear? Cool. So thank you so much for joining this webinar. Thank you for the kind introduction, Jeroen. It's a pleasure to be able to do these things, especially in these times. And a huge thank you for allowing me to speak and share some of my insights during these difficult times. And for those who know me know I like to speak on events and during festivals and shows and conferences. So obviously this is not possible. So I'm super excited to be able to at least do this online with most of you. So for the next hour or so, I'm pretty confident we're going to have a good time, a few laughs, quite a lot of tips and tricks from my end on sharing what I have learned during working from home, as well as during working in the studio, and also doing both. So if you want to check some of my work, feel free to check out my website and follow me on Instagram, etc. So the topic today is WFH WGC. So what the hell does WGC stand for? I made it up working from home without going crazy. So the last couple of months have been really challenging, I guess, for all of us. And I would like to go in depth about the kinks and the things that you have to work around while working from home. And before we get started, I want to give you some context on what I actually do on a daily basis when I'm not doing webinars for Wacom, for example. So here's a quick show reel with some of the latest work that I and some of my fantastic colleagues have been working on.
Robert.
Yep.
We're seeing you. We're not seeing the video, unfortunately.
Oh, hang on. Where do I have this? Ah, right.
Yeah, share the other screen.
How did you like that? I didn't see anything. My apologies. All right.
No worries.
Do you see it now?
Yes, it's coming up.
All right. So I just quickly go through this again. My bad, sorry.
No
It's
worries.
actually my second or third Zoom seminar. So this is the title again, my handle, and here we go to Showreel again.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. All right. So that was that. But we're not going to talk about pixels today so much. I think there's also other topics that are quite important than where to push which button. And these are the things that I would like to talk to you about today. So a couple of my experiences, a look behind the scenes on how it looks like in the studio versus how it looks like right now, right here. Some do's and don'ts, equipment that I use and recommend, structuring your day, making the most of it. Also the mental and psychological approach and what we have to deal with in terms of the limitations and the options that we have, as well as of the ergonomics of your workspace. So these are a couple of the topics. So hang around. I would pretty much promise that there's a few things that you might learn today. A little disclaimer before we get started. These are my tips based on my personal experiences, and in no way is this the only way or the only right way. Of course, there's multiple ways, and everyone has his own way of dealing with the situation and working from home and the options that you have. So I'm sharing the things that I learned with you, hopefully helping you and maybe giving you some inspiration. So this happened a couple of months ago, the big toilet paper panic. Everyone was buying up all toilet paper, but of course, much more serious things happened. And all we had to do is watch out for ourselves. So I heard this already, this meme that people were called up to save other people. You can save people by doing nothing and working from home, which is, I think, probably the good and easiest way to protect each other. So we had to do this, what we see right here, working from home. But it's not always what it seems like. So actually, I'm sure probably some of you have seen videos where you have a seminar, someone in a webcast, and then he has a suit on and the camera falls over and he is wearing shorts. Or kids coming into the picture, like with this next video that I would like to share. So this is from BBC's YouTube channel, and it's a fantastic video. So this is actually 3 years old. So let's take a look.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals? And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children's just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change? I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. My apologies. For the region.
So that's a classic, I think. I would, in a normal audience, I would say raise your hand if someone has seen like that. And by the way, we have a few questions in a poll that my friends over at Wacom will be posting either now, before, or during the seminar. So make sure to answer these so I know what the audience is experiencing. But working from home has its kinks, obviously. So kids coming into the room, or stuff falling over, internet not working. And I found this little graph here. It's from a guy called Matt Showreel, and he was kind enough to allow me to share this with you. And this is a very funny a graph that shows you basically how working from home is changing over time, how much you anticipate of getting done, and how much you snack, and chances of changing out of your pajamas. It will rapidly drop over time, and chances you leave the house, and your self-worth, it just deprecates. And there's another one, relationships. How do relationships change before and after working from home? You look at the drinking curve, or at the sex curve, or the TV watching curve, desire to work from home. Oh, working from home is fantastic, and all of a sudden you find out, oh, maybe it is not so easy. And don't take it too seriously. It's just like a little funny graph, but with a little bit of truth in there for sure. So a little bit of a backstory for me personally. 10 BC usually stands for 10 before Christ, but I changed this up to 10 before Corona. So about 10 years ago, I switched from going from a home office to a studio. So before, from 2005 to 2011, that's when I moved to Munich. In 2005, I worked from a little home office in my apartment that I was sharing with my then girlfriend. We're working in the same little room, crammed in there. It was a separate room, but it was small, and obviously this was not the easiest way. You stuff it in with equipment, and you're together all day working and spending your free time. So that wasn't the ideal situation. So in 2011, I decided to move out of the home office, move out from the home office to a separate studio downtown Munich. So for about the last 10 years, I've used a studio environment that I'm sharing with multiple artists. So it's not just my single room. I do have a single room, but there's multiple rooms attached to that, where multiple artists and friends are working in different areas. Most of them obviously work in the motion graphics and the 3D area, but we have different backgrounds. Some of them are more into 3D, others are more into motion graphics. So we can complement each other quite well. So that's a fantastic thing to do. And the next thing is that I kept the home office as a backup, so to say. So whenever I wanna do something at home, I can do that. So here's the poll. Let me see, how can I freelancer? I cannot do that. Hang on, let me just minimize that. And let's go back to the slides. So how does the actual studio look like? These are not the most current images. These are from last year, about a year old. I switched the machines, and but the rest is still the same. I'm using my BenQ screen and my laptop, and the Intuos Pro large. I have my desk that is raisable. I have a second workstation in the studio where the Cintiq Pro is located. So I'm not using the Cintiq Pro on my main workstation, but I have a separate workstation. So for example, when I do concept work, photo editing or storyboarding, I do that on this Cintiq or on other Cintiqs. This is the rest of the room, a little chill out area, a little couch area to chat and review stuff with clients. We changed it up a little bit. So these are, again, not the most accurate latest pictures. And of course, a lot of Star Wars stuff. I don't know, maybe you figure that I'm a little bit of a Star Wars fan. And I like to put these things into the room. Okay, so hang on. Do you work as a freelancer or employed? Employed, 25% freelancer, 13%, and 63% is in between jobs. Okay, that's interesting to know. So it's good for me. So I can, the way I'm telling and directing things, it's good to know. Why do I have so many things and toys and stuff like that? Because I like it. I like to make myself comfortable in my working environment. This reminds me of what inspired me to do what I do, makes me laugh, or it makes me motivated to see that, you know, whoever did these things also has maybe a hard time working. So I like to make myself comfortable in the office. But how does it look like today? I still have that studio. I'm still paying rent for this. But I haven't been in the studio since I think the first week of March, actually a week before lockdown started. I took all my necessary equipment. So I took the Mac Pro, essentially all the tablets apart from the big Cintiq, and moved everything to my home office. And this is taken today. So this is where I'm sitting right now. This is my setup in the basement of our apartment, where I have set up my work from home environment. So I have a mic, obviously, my Blackmagic camera that I usually use for shoots. It's now a webcam. It actually works quite well. Then of course my Intuos Pro Medium. I work with a medium tablet at home because usually my work is probably 90% in the studio and 10% at home. Now it's 100% at home, but I kept the medium here, and I like to keep the large in my studio because I think it's better to have a large tablet if you have a large screen, because it actually relates better to the distances that you travel with the cursor, you know. So I have a 32-inch display here, and I should have a large tablet, but I left that in the studio. So the medium works also fine, but it needs a little bit of time of getting used to, because, you know, when you move the cursor a little bit, the travel distance is a little bit bigger on the screen. So I prefer the large, but it works just fine with medium. Then on the left, I have my MobileStudio Pro that I use if I have to do something Windows related, or if I have to do something in Photoshop that requires drawing. Beneath that is a PC that I rarely touch, but again, I can use that for renderings. And on the right is my laptop that I usually take home with me when I want to continue work, or I have to continue work at home. And below that is the Mac Pro that usually sits in the studio environment exclusively, but again, I took it home. And right next to it is the brand new Wacom Note that I'm also using and connecting it to the MacBook Pro for now. And right now I have the Wacom Note as a secondary display in front of me to have notes, which is also a fantastic use for that. Behind that is the Aeron chair. I use that chair, I love it. And again, this is another image. Again, you might think everything looks so tidy. Beneath the desk, it looks like a mess. So my cable management could be better. What do I use for work? We're not going to spend too much time on the equipment side, but I'm a heavy Mac guy, as you can tell. But again, I also use PCs and actually work on a project right now that requires use of Windows as well. And I'm sharing documents with Creative Cloud and Dropbox, so I don't really care if I use Photoshop on the Mac or on a PC, but I just sync them up, and then I can just continue working on my main machine. And as for tablets, like I said, the Intuos Pro Medium and Large, the MobileStudio Pro, and in the studio, the Cintiq Pro 32, and also the Wacom One as a sort of a backup tablet as well. In fact, I've been using tablets and Wacom products for quite a long time. Believe it or not, I just found out that I've been using Wacom products for over half of Wacom's existence. So 21 years. So that's me in 1999 working with the, I think it was called ArtPad, the gray thing with, you know, monitors were huge and heavy. So that was then. And now I switched to BenQ monitors exclusively. In the studio, I have the SW321, fantastic 4K panel. A 10-bit display, and at home I use the PD3220U, and I love these screens not just because of their fantastic panels, but also because of their ergonomics and design, and also because all I have to do is connect one single cable, which is a USB-C cable, and I just love that. At home, when I get home, I just plug in the MacBook with one cable, and all the peripherals are connected. The Wacom is connected, display, the keyboard. The sound, everything is connected with just one cable, and it's charging. So it's a fantastic thing. I just love to have as few cables as possible, but still it's a clutter beneath the table. So home office pros versus home office cons. The pros is you might think that you can jump from your computer straight into your bed. I'm not sure if that's a pro, but for some it will be a pro. A con is maybe, you know, you're fed up with work and you just want to go out and maybe not work at all, or you're not allowed to work. So there's a bunch of things. And again, it's different for everyone. Let's start with the pro side. So for me, I found out no commute time, which is more time to, you know, to do other stuff. This could be more work, or this could be playing with kids, or this could be, you know, sleeping longer. I don't know. It really depends on the daily task. More flexibility, of course. You have your own space, fewer in-person meetings. Can be good, can be also bad, more productive. Fewer distractions. Again, depends on your surroundings. Fewer small talk. This could be good and bad. Actually, I miss a lot of the small talk. I miss the interaction. But also less risk of becoming sick right now. Okay, so that's obviously a good thing. And here's the next poll. Do you enjoy working from home more than at your workplace? Yes, I'm going to be very interested in seeing the answers for this one. So this is coming in right now. Let's talk about the cons. Missing social exchange is the big one. And also the pressure of having to prove you actually work, which results in working more. I think this is a very underrated issue that a lot of people are facing. My partner is also working from home since the same time. And she's using the dining table as her workspace. And actually, she told me that point that so somehow you have to prove that you're working. Like you mentally like, oh, she's or he's working from home. Oh, what? He's just sitting there relaxing and not working at all. And you mentally have that feeling of having to prove like I am home, but I am working. And this results in having to stress manage your work actually more. No personal communication is also a big con. More calls and more online conferences is also maybe not as good. Work where you live and live where you work. It's difficult to have a mental life work separation. For me, it's very important. You know, when I shut the door, I mean, I don't want to think about work. As creatives, everything is spinning in your mind all the time. So it's difficult to have that separation. So having a physical separation location-wise is good. Some people have less technical equipment available in their home office, and you have to organize and structure your day way better than working in a studio. So how did my work day look in the past 2 months? Well, okay, so here's the poll. How do you, yes, PJs over pants every day, okay. Yes, as long as I keep the working hours balanced. That's exactly the point. 30% want to keep that balance. It's the same, interesting, okay. Kind of missed the office, 20%, so almost quarter. Let me out now, okay. So so there's not really a tendency to one single point, which is also interesting. It pretty much reflects also my relationship with working from home, which is a love-hate relationship. I love it, but I hate it at the same time. So how did my day look like? Well, kindergarten just started like 2 weeks ago. So we have 2 kids, so we can put the kids to the kindergarten at least for a couple of hours. But before, I was taking care of the kids from 8, 9 to around 3, 4, maybe 5 o'clock. At that time, my partner was working upstairs, and we were just, you know, playing with the kids, building a lot of Lego. And then I started to work from 4 to maybe midnight. So that was quite heavy. But now it's balanced out, so I can start in the morning and have more regular working hours. But what have I learned, and what is it that I'm still learning in these last couple of months? There's been quite a lot, and I would like to share that with you. The first thing that I can really advise, if possible, is to have a separate dedicated room as your home office. And I understand that not everyone has the option and the possibility to have a separate room. This really depends on where you live and how big your workplace or home is, basically, how many rooms you have. But at least give yourself a dedicated space to work where you can have just your work time dedicated just for work. And have it as with little distractions as possible, because of course distractions are a huge negative factor, no matter if it's in your home office or in your regular work day. So there's a question that popped up. Let me just quickly have a quick glance at it. If you have to choose only one productive device, what would you choose and why? It's a good one. I want to be I wanted to be a pro, and I could please provide read me. Okay. Wacom needs to take care of that question. I cannot help with this, unfortunately. But with the first one tool that I would like to choose to be productive, one device, it must be probably my laptop, because obviously then if I wouldn't have a laptop, then I couldn't work. If it would be a gadget, it probably would be my I think it would be the tablet, really. It's not because I'm doing a Wacom seminar, but it's because sometimes I do have a mouse connected, but I simply cannot work with a mouse, because I've been working with Wacom products for about 22 years. And I do so much Photoshop, After Effects, Cinema 4D work that relies on working with the pen and pressure sensitive features that I would go nuts if I would have to rely only on using a trackpad or a mouse. So that's that. So going back to setting up the day, structuring your day is even more important than when you work in a studio environment or in your office. And why is this important? Because you get carried away at home much easier than at work, because, well, you're at home and then you have the laundry, the dishes, etc. So write down your tasks and structure your day with maybe Post-its or whatever, and also work as well as personal tasks on a to-do list. This might be different for employees because they have a much more established structure, because you have to attend meetings, and of course it's expected from you to be there from 9 to whatever. As a freelancer, this could be totally different. As a freelancer, the work has to be done, and no one cares if you do it at midnight or in the morning, unless you have several scheduled meetings. But again, write down what you have to do. And I like to use a mix of digital as well as analog stuff. So I have a little notebook right here that I fill up with random thoughts and notes, as well as to-do lists. I use Post-its as well, as seen here, and write down, structure your week, or at least the next 2 or 3 days with Post-its. You know, put down one by one different tasks. It could be personal as well as work tasks. And this will help you dramatically. And why is it good to have to-do lists and task lists? Well, you put down little things like animation, project X, reply inquiry, finish editing. And the good thing is to either cross them off or check them off. It gives you a mental, psychological, satisfactory feeling just to know that you've done that. It's important mentally to realize that you get stuff done, and it is done, because otherwise you'll be in the treadmill. And I watched a couple of videos also on working from home, and some fantastic folks from the Future channel, which I'll talk more about in a bit. They have also different approaches, and they also encourage to do to-do lists, because then whenever the to-do list is done, the workday is done. So if you're faster, if you're done in 4 or 5 hours, then you're done. So you can carry over some stuff from the next day, or just go by your day and play with the kids and enjoy family time. I also use digital tools like the standard apps on default, the notes as well as the to-do list app, but also I use the Things app, which is quite fantastic. So I use both and try to keep the analog as well as the digital things in sync. And here's the list. Get up. It sounds easier than it's done, especially if you're working from home. Sounds totally cliche, but you have to be disciplined. I have a strictly enforced no pajama rule. Sweatpants are okay. I'm wearing jeans right now, but no pajamas. So why is that? It's a little bit of a psychological thing again. If you jump out of bed straight to the computer, then again, there's no difference between your personal private life and your work life. And I like to differentiate and keep that separate as much as possible, although there's of course interlaps and intersections. But it's also a little bit of a self-respect thing, and also a little bit of a respect towards the others. And you work differently when you just go by your normal routine. You shower, you get ready, you have breakfast, and then you change into, or before actually, you change into your clothes, and then you work down and work. So this helps a lot, believe it or not. So it's very important to have structure and discipline, but also be flexible and cherish the freedom that you have with working from home. And we'll talk about that in a while. distractions is a huge point that I would like to spend some time talking about, because obviously at home you have different distractions than in a studio. I'm sure some of you have heard things like, honey, can you quickly do the laundry? Or, oh, the dishwasher is done, let's do that. You know, at work you procrastinate by surfing on Instagram or on YouTube, and at home it's the dishwasher or the laundry, and ping, all of a sudden you have a new follower on Instagram. Oh, who is it? Or the kids comes and say, Daddy, can you build that Lego car you always wanted to build with me? And then, oh, okay, yeah, let's build that. So it's difficult. And I understand that it's not always easy, and I know you have to practice what you preach. And for sure, I'm probably not doing all the things perfectly that I'm telling you that you should do, but I'm at least aware of them, and I'm working on them to get there and to be good at whatever I do. So there's a study that was conducted a few years ago that I found online while doing some research for the seminar, and I found after being distracted, it takes about 23 minutes and 15 seconds to get back to the original task. So this was done by Gloria Mark. Here's the link. You can download that PDF. It's very interesting. So this is this thing where you just peek on something, and then you were in the zone, and all of a sudden you realize that it takes a mental toll, because you just, what did I leave off, or what did I animate, what did I draw? So this is a biggie, I think, to really focus on not being distracted so easily. And I would like to point out a conversation that I had with two fantastic creative and also business people that turned friends. I met Chris Do and Matthew Encina in LA 2 years ago at Adobe Max. And I've admired the channel. The channel is called The Future, thefuture.com. So I can say Chris and Matthew from the future. Sounds quite nice. And they have a channel that helps fellow creatives build their brand and help them be more creative. A lot of business talk and tips for creatives, actually. And while chatting with them, and also being guests on their show twice, and also on a podcast, and during our conversations in person as well as on the seminar, I learned quite a lot of things. Some things that maybe did instinctively right, but having it seen in front of me as a rule or as a recommendation was quite eye-opening. And one of the things that I saw was focus sprints. That's what they call it. It's, again, they didn't invent that as well themselves. So they also developed that over the time and found psychologists to develop these things. But focus sprints is an interesting way of being able to focus more on certain tasks. So it's a 90-minute time slot of focused work without any distractions, if possible. So how can you do this? Well, the easiest way is to actually go about and set a timer on your watch, on your phone, to 90 minutes, or 60 or 70 or 80, but I would say 90 as a max, 60 as a minimum. Turn off notifications, turn off your email, turn off your phone if possible, if that's allowed, and focus on that one single task that you put out. Animate this, scribble that, draw this, and be really, really conscious about finishing that task. And after that time is up, you go out and take a break, step away from the computer. Again, this is something that's easier said than done. We tend to work long hours and just keep being on the computer all the time, which is nice because we love working, but it's also difficult because it will take a toll on your body and on your productivity. So step away from the computer for a good 20, 15, maybe 30 minutes, and then you can continue working. I would like to share this little slide here on, I'm sure most of you know it, but the quickest and easiest ways, at least on the iPhone, I'm sure on Android, it's just as easy to slide down, hit the do not disturb. And then as for the timer, go into the clock or watch app and set a timer for as long as you want to be focusing on working on this one particular task that you set out for yourself, which is also super, super important. All right, let's talk a little bit more about breaks and why this is important. Again, breaks is something that we get carried away with working just straight on, just hammering through, burning the midnight oil. and then all of a sudden you realize, oh damn, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And this can work, especially I figured that when I was younger, I could work longer hours, and my work day shifted from working in the evenings to working more in the mornings. I'm still not a morning person, but I realized that come 10, 11 p.m., I'm not that productive as I used to maybe 10, 15 years ago. So maybe this also has to do with the way your body changes and mentally how you work. But I realized that taking breaks is really helping a lot. But don't get carried away with breaks. Don't make a 10-minute break a 2-hour break, of course. So I wrote down dire times require dire solutions. So a break, especially when working from home, could also mean running errands quickly or buying groceries. A break doesn't have to be laying on the sunbed out on the terrace or in the garden or whatever. You can make use of the break time in a clever way. And, you could just, buy some groceries or, empty the dishwasher while doing the break. So you get up, you move, you get the blood flow going again. So be smart about that. So I try to implement breaks with helping with the household as much as I can, wherever possible. Of course, it doesn't work always. And again, this is something that personally works for me, but maybe not for you. So be aware of that. The next topic is getting shit done. It ties in pretty much to the first point of focus. What was it called? Focus sprints. I'm in the zone right now. So Eisenhower matrix. It relates back to doing a focus sprint, but also finding the task that you want to do, but also to the very first point that I mentioned about structuring your day and figuring out what is important and what is not. And the Eisenhower matrix is derived from Dwight Eisenhower, who is said to be quoted saying, what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. And of course, he was I think the 34th president of the United States. So I'm pretty sure he got some shit done. And the key is to split up importance and urgency by prioritizing tasks. Again, this is something that I'm for sure not perfect doing, but I'm working on it, and at least figuring out which tasks to do when is something that will help you tremendously in sorting out what to do and what maybe to postpone or not to do at all. So prioritizing tasks is not as easy as it sounds, but there's this matrix that can help you. So it will be divided into four areas essentially. So this is the Eisenhower matrix. Then on the lower end, you have the low importance, and on the higher end, you have the high importance. Doesn't mean that it's not important just because it's of a lower importance. It's just about prioritizing the importance that you have. So again, you have the urgent, and then you have the less or not urgent parts. So these are the four components that you can break down the tasks that you have to do. So you write on all your tasks, and then you can sort them in either digitally or physically by putting Post-its on a piece of paper. So the urgent one is breaking down itself into do it now. The not so urgent one is breaking itself down to decide when to do it. The low importance one is maybe something that you can delegate someone to do it. Maybe you have a coworker or a partner that you're working with. And the last one, the not so urgent one with low importance, is do it later, schedule it when you want to do it. So what could be examples of this? Urgent ones. Health is important. Make a doctor's appointment is important because it's also an easy thing to do. It's just a call or an email or fill out an online form. Make that doctor's appointment because it's important. It's about your health. Get that done. Get it done with. Then of course, finish an animation that you need to send off for it to be signed off, to be approved, or send it to your coworker. If it's an urgent project, of course, you have to find out and you have to deliver that. Or if you have to hold a Wacom seminar about working from home coming up on Friday and it's Wednesday evening, all of a sudden that's an urgent task. You have to finish up those slides to be able to present it to you guys. So I put that on the do it now stuff. The not so urgent part, but still important, is update my portfolio. Get a haircut maybe after months and weeks of lockdown. So that's also important, but it's not really urgent. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you get it now or today or tomorrow or in a week or something. and continue a personal project. Again, important, but not as urgent. Delegating someone to do it. Again, this might not work for everyone. I like to share a project with coworkers and friends. So there's some things that we can share and delegate. So create storyboards for project X. Maybe you're working with someone that can draw way better than you can draw. So I like to hand this over to other people that can do it better than I can do. Taxes, invoices. I have a tax consultant that works for me that does that for me. Again, he's way better at that. Doesn't mean that it's not important. It's a lower importance. It needs to get done, but he does take care of that. Editing Showreel is another tip that I'd like to point out. You know, it's good to be able to edit your Showreel, but others might do it better. And then you have do it later, you know, archive finished projects, read a book about marketing, clean up your desk, all this stuff you can postpone. So that's very helpful when you want to work. Let's talk briefly about ergonomics. There's a lot to cover about that. I just briefly want to mention two things that are dear to my heart. Ergonomics is not about just using the pen instead of the mouse, but also how you sit, how you stand maybe, what kind of lights you have, make it as bright as possible. Don't work too much in the dark if possible. For chair, I would like to point out and highlight my absolute favorite I think for the last, I don't even know, 15 years, I've been using this chair. I have one here in my home office, one in my studio. It's important to have a good chair. It's an investment. They're pretty pricey, but it's an investment to your health. A couple of things I'd like to point out is that it has a breathable backrest and also a mesh on the sitting area as well as on the back area. So you're not sweating. Even in the summer, it has a posture fit, so your back is supported. And it has a curved lower end, so where your thighs are, the blood is not compressed. So actually that curvature down is helping you to sit long hours comfortably. And then the desk. In my studio, I have a desk from IKEA. It's just like it's a pretty affordable desk that you can raise it up and down to also work in a standing position. It also helps. So if you're overwhelmed by large tasks, large projects, this is another tip. You don't know where to start, but there's a saying that it starts with the first step, and it starts by breaking it down into chunks. It helps tremendously. Try that. Again, it sounds cliche, but it's very, very efficient. And we're almost done, but one point that is very important is talk to people. Again, with these times being locked, maybe alone, it's important to not just privately talk to people with FaceTime or Skype or Zoom or whatever, but also by talking to people personally, also coworkers. Share your screen, collaborate as much as possible. It helps mentally quite a lot to actually be in touch with people instead of just working alone in your little environment, and it's just not helping anyone. And who says that you can have fun? Your next meeting, working on the next big thing, could be using FaceTime with I don't know, with those emoji masks on. And you don't have to take things too serious. But another thing that I really want to point out is don't forget to have fun, but talk to people and be open about possible distractions. I had it in meetings, video conference, that the kids came running in. Usually I lock the door, but sometimes I forget, and then they come in, and I tell people like, okay, the kids are at home. They might distract the conference, so don't stress about that. Appreciate that and work around it. And when people know that, it could be also a fun situation. So don't go too crazy about that. Another tip is I use wireless headphones most of the time when talking. This allows me to keep my hands free, so I can continue working while I'm talking maybe to people about something, about that project, or if I schedule a break that has maybe I schedule a break that has a call with it, and I usually step away from the computer. I like to schedule calls in packs. So let's say I take 1 hour where I dedicate 1 hour just to make calls, and I take this 1 hour to go outside for a walk, if possible. Of course, if you don't have to sit in front of the computer, then I do that. I sit down in the garden, be out in the fresh air, maybe take the laptop and do some stuff, but try to change up things. If you don't have to work in this specific scenario, go out, go in a cafe, or if allowed, or go out in the balcony or whatever. So make those call slots to step away from the computer. So this is a good thing. So it comes down to how you can balance your new work and your new life for the situation. And I've had a podcast with Christo, who I really admire on how he thinks about things. And he has a different approach. So our topic was work-life balance. And I asked about how he goes about his day. He also has 2 kids, and how does he integrate his work into his life? And really, he said, it's not about work-life balance, but work-life integration. So I found that very, very eye-opening on how you can work around things and integrate things, for example, kids into your workday. And if you want to find out about that, it's about an hour of a podcast. You have to just look up The Future with Christo, and it's episode 6 to 7. Feel free to shoot me an email or a direct message, and I'll be happy to share the thoughts as well as the podcast with you. So we're almost done. I have a few hot tips coming up as well before I take some more questions. But I would like to sum it up a little bit for you. So for the past 45 minutes that I've talked, again, strictly enforced no pajama rule. It really helps. If you're working in pajamas in front of the computer, you lost control of your life, I think. Have a dedicated space or a room, ideally, to work if you want to work from home. We have a rule: no computers in the bedroom. So that's a no-no, at least for us. It doesn't mean that, for example, if things go crazy and you have to separate yourself, lock yourself in the bedroom, that's fine, but don't make it that you work in the bed, at least for us. No eating in front of the computer. I try to be strict about that as well. Step away, take some time to have a proper meal. Do not slouch. Don't work like this all the time. Your body will be happy about that. Do not Netflix. Although the TVs might be next to you, or the laptop, whatever, try to really focus on work when it's work time. Again, make checklists, to-do lists. Use the commute time smartly, differently. Make use of that time. Usually it takes me about 25 minutes to get into the studio from here and 25 minutes back. I do like the commute time. I like to listen to music. I like to get into the zone of going from home to work. And when I leave work, I transition into, just being again, the partner, the father for the kids, and, it's private time. So this is gone now. So I try to use this time differently, play with the kids, maybe work a little bit more. It really depends on the current situation or what you have to do. Make yourself comfortable, talk to people, coworkers, FaceTime, Skype, Zoom, etc., whatever you have at your hand. Take regular breaks and be smart and schedule automated tasks during breaks. So here's a couple of the bonus tips that I would like to talk about for maybe a minute or two while we have that other poll coming up right now. So bonus tips, the 3 icons of doom. It's no signal, no Wi-Fi or bad Wi-Fi, and no battery. No battery, you can just charge your phone when you're working from home. You have a power outlet. Wi-Fi, hopefully you have. But what if you don't have a signal? Like for me, I don't have a signal here in the basement because I'm in the basement. So how can you still receive calls? Well, I have a landline that I don't use at all. But there's a trick on the iPhone. I don't know if you have it on Android, but on the phone it's super easy. You go to your general settings, you go to mobile data, and then you enable Wi-Fi calling or WLAN calls in German. And then you are able, if supported by your carrier and your device, you're able to take on calls. So this is how I can still take on calls on the phone without having any signal. So that's something I found out works quite well. The other tip is let the computer do the work for you. This is especially interesting for everyone that is working in the business of motion graphics, 3D animation, and using maybe Adobe Media Encoder or Apple Compressor or whatever tool you're choosing. I use the Adobe Media Encoder quite a lot. And what I mean by that is, again, be smart and have a strategy. So for example, when I do an animation and I want to pre-render it and maybe have a preview of it, I'm figuring out, okay, so I'm pretty much done and I could use a break now, but I also want to render it out. So what I do is I set that up to the render queue. I go into the into the settings of publishing. It's on the far right. Again, my apologies, this is the German screenshot. I only have it installed in German right now, but you go to publish and then you can choose Vimeo or YouTube or whatever platform you want to share it to. And you just click on that check mark, and I specified view with the password. So you put in the password and then you click OK, and this will render in the background. So this will render your file while you maybe have lunch or go for a break, step away for a walk, and this will do the work for you. This will not only render it, but after it's done rendering, it will upload it for you. And then on your phone, you get a message, the render is done. If you set it up like that, or you get a message from Vimeo, the file is ready. All you have to do is send that email to the client with the feedback, all while maybe not even being at the computer, which is a fantastic thing. I use it quite a lot. So speaking of Vimeo, there's also a little free tool that allows you to have it up there in your taskbar, where you can also quickly share your videos and also share links, which is also a minor, tiny thing, but very helpful. So if you're not working in the 3D area or in video area, of course, rendering is something that takes time. Still, you can benefit from letting the computer work for you. So you can use batch process in Photoshop. If you're working on files, you can set up a batch process that will process the files for you while you step away from the computer, export photos from Lightroom, or maybe download or upload client files or coworker files to your preferred storage system. So you're not hogging up your web transfer ratio while working. Maybe you need that, but if you step away from the computer, just do the download or upload while you're away. I wanted to talk a little bit about personal projects. Time is running out a little bit. Maybe I can share some of the stuff that I've been doing. But I think more or less we are pretty much done. Would maybe spend 1 minute of sharing some of the stuff that I've been working on lately, while maybe you type in the projects that you have on your mind. So what did I finish in this crazy time? One project I'm very proud of that was done for Adobe. It's the Adobe Stock Remix. I did that with an artist in Berlin together, an illustrator. He is known as Dexter the Weird, and he's a fantastic illustrator. He illustrated all that. I did all the animation, and it's for a good cause. We came up with this concept before Corona, so it's about the still going on climate crisis that is affecting every one of us. Raising awareness with this little animation using some of the Adobe stock imagery and videos. So this was that. It was a lot of fun. Check that out if you like. I think it's a beautiful project. The other one was doing opening titles for a short film called Follow. So I filmed that in the forest, and it comes in. It's a little moody scene. So I tracked that and how to put that in. Again, there is also a webinar for Adobe on how I did particularly this shot. And the other thing that I worked on quite extensively during the couple of weeks where I had really no projects going was my personal project, which is a Star Wars fan film. So I'm sharing this pretty much exclusively right now. I haven't shown this really too much, but this is one of the shots that I just wrapped up, shot in Iceland. A couple of TIE fighters composited in. The TIE fighters are from Video Copilot. The shuttle is from a very talented guy in Belgium called Michael. And yeah, so this was a little bit of a coping mechanism thing to work on this personal project. I strongly encourage everyone to work on personal projects. It allows you to basically, learn new things, as well as maybe share new stuff that you don't have to ask permission from clients and stuff like that. So here are a couple of frames from that on how this will look like for that Star Wars film. I learned a new tool, which is Substance Painter, which makes heavy use of the Wacom pen as well, being pressure sensitive. So this is all built in 3D, textured in Substance Painter, and rendered in Cinema 4D. So these are a couple of the sets that I'm working on, a couple of the props, making all those little edges and details. A lot of fun, but again, I have some work to do again now. But that's basically it from my end. And let's see if there's any questions that that have been asked. So, oh yeah, there's another poll. So about 18% have a dedicated office room. 64% have a working desk in the living room and the bedroom. Okay, that's a lot. And 18% are occupying the dining table during work hours. So just as with us, with my partner upstairs. So so the least people, I have a very fortunate situation of having a dedicated office room. I know that. And this will probably change. We will change up the room. So it's going to be different in a couple of months, I guess. And let's go through the questions. Okay, technical stuff I think is best answered by Wacom. If you have any more questions about how to make the most of working from home, feel free to punch in the question right now in the Q&A. Also, don't be afraid to shoot me any questions over directly if you are maybe too shy of posting the questions online for me to read out. Feel free to go over either my website and drop me an email, or Instagram at HR Animator, or Twitter HR Animation. And yeah, feel free to ask any of those questions that might be nagging you. You always wanted to ask. Don't feel obliged. I just appreciate your time of taking part in this seminar. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you're safe, healthy, and hopefully you stay safe and healthy. And hopefully you're productive as much as possible with living a healthy life. So thank you so much for joining this seminar. I had a blast, and yeah, let me know what you think. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you heaps for this webinar. I think it was very, very enjoyable. I have two key takeaways for myself. That is definitely your what you said about the commute that is now no longer there, basically helping you to transition from your personal setting into a work mode, and also transition back from work into end of day and some relax and downtime. I feel that in my personal situation, that is something that you actually have to think about that now that you're sitting at home, because you check your first emails the moment you wake up, and you check in the last emails the moment you turn off the light. And this allowing yourself to transition from work into your personal life is, I think, super important.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
The other tip that I'm definitely going to steal is planning specific slots for calls, because that also happens in Wacom, that you've got meetings and meetings and meetings. In between meetings, you've got calls, and then all of a sudden you don't have time. Basically, the call of nature and the coffee breaks are like totally out of your business day. But to actually actively schedule calls in a specific time slot, which also allows you to step away from the computer and do something else, I think that's a super cool tip, and I'm definitely trying to steal that and integrate that in my workflow.
Yeah, it's good, because I mean, it doesn't work for all the calls, to be honest.
True.
You know, if you have a super important client and you're out and here's the birds whistling and I don't know what, and other chatter or whatever, then maybe that's not the best way. But I did it a lot with, or actually I do it a lot with coworkers. You know, when I was working with Dennis, or currently working with Max, you know, it's casual calls. It's about, you know, do you make this green or make it red? Do you make it large, big, or make it fast or slow? How do you want to animate this? And they don't give anything about if there's a bird whistling because I'm outside, or if they hear me empty the dishwasher or whatever. You know, as long as I can focus on the call, that's fine. Again, it doesn't work for all types of calls, but again, be smart, schedule and plan ahead to be able to step away from the computer as much as possible.
Excellent. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
We've got a little wrap-up slide at the end. Hang on, let me try to share this if Zoom allows me. Oh, Mucky slide, mucky slide, mucky slide. Hang on. This is where we want to go. Yes. So if you enjoyed this webinar, then do check out the future upcoming webinars that we're going to host from Wacom. Easiest way is to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Wacom, and you'll be updated on upcoming webinars. If you feel like sharing your art and other content that you've done with Wacom, or where you want us to see it, use the hashtag #MadeWithWacom, and we will keep a close eye on that feed across all the different channels. Also, don't forget to follow Robert at Hranitzky, and he's got a really nice Instagram profile, so it's worth checking out. If you now think it's time to up your game and maybe go a little bit shopping, do check out our eStore. You are entitled to a specific Wacom or webinar-related discount of 15% on the Wacom Cintiq 22 and Wacom Intuos, so that's a pen tablet, and the Intuos Pro Medium. So you can use the promo code WebinarRobert for checkout in our eStore. And yes, I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Stay sane, stay safe, stay creative, and do join us again for the next webinar. Thanks all, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Robert.